Good day, guys. Welcome to the Crypto Giant channel. In this channel, I'm going to be looking at the different cryptocurrencies which are available there in the markets, but I'll also be predominantly talking about Bitcoin, which is the biggest cryptocurrency in terms of market capitalization. It's the first and it's the biggest cryptocurrency. So, and I also want to empower a lot of people in terms of knowledge, to gain the right knowledge in terms of how they can be involved with Bitcoin, because this thing, it's huge, guys. It's completely revolutionizing the world. It's changing the financial sector. We are in the phase of the fourth industrial revolution, and most people need to, and all people should be looking at opportunities on how to get involved so that they are not left behind. And a lot of organization, big financial institutions are looking at Bitcoins, cryptocurrencies, and also the blockchain. So and there's a huge benefit in getting involved because we are in the early stages of cryptocurrencies. So people must take time and empower themselves with the right knowledge so that they are not left behind. Okay, so what is Bitcoin? Bitcoin, it is a digital currency / asset which is not issued or controlled by anyone. So it's something which is totally decentralized. If you compare it to the government currencies, which are called fiat currencies, they are controlled by central banks and politicians. With Bitcoin, there's no single person who controls a Bitcoin. It is completely controlled via the logic, the computer logic. So it is decentralized in that way. So also I just want to explain how does something which is completely digital have value. For anything to have value, two principles need to be certified, and those principles, the first one is scarcity. It means that particular thing must be limited, and there must be an extensive process of getting it. There must be work involved in getting it. If you look at Bitcoin, there's only 21 million Bitcoins which will ever be available, and the last Bitcoin will be mined in 2140. In the year 2140. So the Bitcoins are limited. The number is 21 million Bitcoins. And built into the Bitcoin logic, which is controlled by a computer with superpower computers, which are managed by people who are called miners. There's a logic or algorithm which makes the Bitcoins issued to the miners to have every 4 years. So that means that the supply of Bitcoins halves every 4 years. So the supply decreases every 4 years, and there's a limited number of Bitcoins which will ever be available. So the criteria for scarcity is ticked in that manner. And the other principle which needs to be satisfied for something to have value, it is a utility. It means that particular thing must have useful properties which will then create demand for it. So if you look at, for example, let's make an example with gold. Gold, there's a limited amount of gold which is available in the ground, in the reserves, and there's an extensive process of finding that gold, which is called mining. And after that, the ore has been mined, it goes through various stages in order to get to the final mineral with a purity of 99%. And those stages are called refinery. So it's limited because when people extract the gold, it gets depleted, and also there's work involved which is called mining. So that criteria is also ticked if you comparing it to gold. And the second criteria, I said it's scarcity. It means that particular thing must have useful properties which will then create demand for it. If you look at gold, the properties for gold, it is used as a store of value. And it is a store of value because when people mine gold, it gets depleted. And if you have gold and kept it over time, because the reserves are depleting, if the demand remains the same, the economics says the price of gold must increase. So it deflates rather than inflate. And also wealthy people like to use gold as a store of value. People use gold in jewelry. So those properties create those useful properties for gold makes the demand for gold. So if you look at Bitcoin, it is a digital currency, but also it is a currency which is global. It is borderless. You can send someone to a Bitcoin to whatever country, and he will receive it in a matter of minutes, and he can exchange it there to the currency of that particular country in a matter of minutes. So it's borderless. So it's if you look at traditional ways of sending cash across borders, there's a lot of bureaucracy which is involved, a lot of paperwork, policies, and it takes close to a week for a person to receive the cash in a different country. So where else with Bitcoin, it is borderless. It's something that you can send to someone anywhere in the world. He receives it in a matter of minutes. The transactional fees are lower because there's no third parties involved to facilitate the transaction. It's peer-to-peer. You directly send the Bitcoin to the person who you want to transact with. Okay, so because of that, Bitcoin has useful property, and also it is used as a store of value. If you look at Bitcoin, Bitcoin was formed in 2009. It started as an experiment due to that global financial crisis which was created by banks in 2008. It was something to mitigate against that. And if you look at the period from 2009 till 2019, there's been an exponential increase in the price of Bitcoin. So obviously daily you'll have the dips, but if you look at that in a long run, the price of Bitcoin is increasing. So it's also as a store of value in that sense, and also as I categorize it as an asset in that sense. Okay, so how does Bitcoin work? Bitcoin uses something special which is called the blockchain. The blockchain, it is a distributed ledger which is completely decentralized. So the ledger records all the Bitcoin transactions, and it is not kept in a single server. So and people who maintain that ledger, who make sure that the transactions are verified and recorded to that ledger, are called Bitcoin miners. So when people transact using Bitcoins, all the transactions are recorded on that ledger. Before the blockchain technology, it was impossible to own a digital asset. And the reason being is, if I had an MP3 file and I sent that file to someone, I will have sent him a copy. I will be left with the original file, and that particular person will have a copy of that file, which means there'll be 2 copies of that file. But with money, it's different. It's very important that when I send you the cash, the 10 Rand or $10, that there's no other copy other than the original copy, which is the $10 or 10 Rands which I've sent. So the blockchain technology assists, or it's a technology where all the Bitcoin transactions are recorded, and there's people who maintain that double ledger, or that ledger where all the transactions are recorded, as to maintain that ledger in terms of doing all the necessary calculations, that when there's a transaction between a peer-to-peer people anywhere in the world, that the original, there's no duplication of that Bitcoin, and the original copy of the Bitcoin is sent. It's sent to that any person anywhere in the world. Okay, so how does Bitcoin compare to government currencies? Bitcoin is completely decentralized, which means it is not controlled by any entity nor government. and politicians don't have hold over Bitcoins. And people who comes from established countries where there's policies in place, where there's less corruption, they wouldn't understand the power of Bitcoin. But people coming in less developed currencies where there's a lot of corruption and the economy doesn't grow that well, they'll really appreciate the power of Bitcoin. Bitcoin is completely decentralized. It's not controlled by anyone, and the price of Bitcoin is strictly controlled by supply and demand. So you remove the variables of politician making a stupid decision which will then affect your investments. And countries like Venezuela, countries like Brazil, and countries like Zimbabwe, where the economic system has totally crashed or crumbled, Bitcoin is very useful there, because that's the currency which you can use to transact, and it stores value. You can send someone the Bitcoin in those countries at any time of the day and they will receive it, and it fights the hyperinflation from the fiat currencies. So Bitcoin, it's a digital currency which is totally decentralized, and no government has control over Bitcoin. To also share with you my experience to further enlighten you the control that the government and the banks have over us. I wanted to exchange my South African rand for a US dollar. So just for the fun of it, but also to hedge. I just wanted to have US dollar notes instead of my South African rand. I went to this bank where I asked if they can assist. They said, yes, we can assist, but will require a proof that you will be traveling to USA, and in terms of me proving, I must come with my proof of residence, and also the flight bookings, that the flight has already been booked. So because I wasn't planning to travel to USA, I didn't have a booking for a flight, I was turned back. I couldn't I couldn't exchange my rands for my US dollar. But it got me thinking. The control that the government and these financial institutions have upon us. Why would someone want to control the currency that I keep? Okay, thank you guys. Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel. There will be a lot of other channels which are coming where I'll share my experience, how Bitcoin has completely changed my world, how you can get involved, practical examples of how you can get involved, invest in Bitcoins, and create a passive income for yourself. So please subscribe to the channel. Thank you.